this is Katie Dozier, HotJenny314 for CardsChat.com, and today we're going to be taking a look at a hand that I played that has been bothering me perhaps ever since I played it, as you'll see why later on, in the Guys and Girls Home Game Tournament Series with CardsChat, which was a super fun tournament series. I've never played in that kind of a series before that pits the guys against the girls, and it was really fun, even if the girls did lose, but we'll get them next year. I know we will. So this particular hand happened in the second to last game of the tournament series, and I think is a pretty interesting one. So it starts out with UTG limping. So as you see, we're already post ante, so the pot is already 280. Now in this situation, if Ligagi had limped in the same position, but I was in late position as opposed to being in the big blind where I'm going to be out of position post-flop, I would tend to go ahead and raise. So if I was in a position where I would have opened the Queen-Jack offsuit, so definitely from the low jack or better, I would go ahead and raise this, and I would have 3x or just slightly over 3x given the stack size this raise, or I would have raised with to that amount here. But instead, with being in the big blind, being out of position post-flop, and not having an incredibly strong hand, I'm going to go ahead and just check this, but it's close to the top of that range for me. If I had Queen-Jack suited where I was happier to build the pot, I would go ahead and do that. Also want to note that at this point, Ligagi has limped before, so it's not a situation where I find myself suspicious of the under-the-gun limp, which, you know, obviously is something that you want to keep in mind if you've never seen a player limp and then they limp under the gun. Alarm bells, of course, should be going off in every CardsChat member's head. So we get to this flop. So obviously a pretty good flop for me. Also a very wet flop. Almost the definition of a wet board here. So I'm going to go ahead and bet here. Of course, if I checked, Ligagi couldn't see bet because he hadn't raised pre. So I'm definitely going to be pretty much always betting out here. My range is going to be balanced, perhaps not so much on this wet board where there is a lot that the other player could have hit, particularly in a limped pot. But generally speaking, I will take a stab here as a bluff too, on a lot of boards, just not this one in particular. So half pot, I'm pretty good with my sizing here. And we get called. So when we get called, there's so many hands that can be calling us, so many more worse hands that can be calling here. You know, any 10, obviously flush draws in the mix, an 8 or a 9. With that limped range, we really don't know a lot about what this player could have at this point, besides the fact that it's very possible that they have some kind of a draw or some kind of a not super solid made hand. If they had been, say, trapping with aces or kings pre-flop or even queens, it's very likely at this point that they would go ahead and raise. So we're not really concerned about overpairs at this point. The turn is where things get really interesting, right? So obviously we like the turn card here, being the jack, giving us trips. I'm pretty confident here we have the best hand. Now, here is where I don't like what I did. So I bet 314, and yes, that is over half pot in this scenario, but at the same time, I think I should have either gone radically smaller or radically bigger to kind of polarize things. My thinking at the time was that I can bet this amount and still get this kind of player to, you know, go ahead and raise me here as a semi-bluff. But I think in particular, versus the type of player that limped under the gun, has been passive so far this hand, it would have been a lot better to bet more. Even though that may have gotten me into a different situation on the river, obviously, with the pot being bigger. But I think that I should have gone ahead and bet more here. I think, too, considering that some of the time I may be doing that with a semi-bluff, that when I actually have a good made hand, it would be better to bet, instead of just a bit over half pot, more like full pot, something along that range, so that also it sets me up more to play for stacks on the river. So we get called again here. So far this player has been playing this hand fairly passively. Okay, the river is not a card that I like to see. Okay, it's not literally the worst card in the deck. The worst card in the deck would be the 7 of hearts, I think, as opposed to the 7 of clubs in this particular situation. So obviously now, any 10 is a straight. And I'm very concerned about this player having a 10 in their hand given how the entire thing has gone down so far. So I elect to check and hopefully leave this player's range open in terms of hoping that this player will say bet half pot or something if they did have a busted draw at the same time. I am very leery about not having the best hand in this scenario, but I really wasn't expecting what happened here. So this player shoves, and this player shoves for twice the pot, and so we're looking at pot odds of just about 1.5 to 1. So we need to be good about close to half, 41% of the time to be good here. And I used my time bank here. I definitely did and really thought about it and wound up making a fold here because I was really concerned about the 10. I knew some of the time this player's bluffing, but this player played this hand really passively, and in general, when you're up against someone who's playing passively and then they take a really aggressive line, that should be something that you're really concerned about, even if some of the time they're bluffing. And one of the times they were bluffing was right in this hand where I folded trips, which is not something I do a ton, to this player, Legacy, who made a bluff that definitely worked out on me, so well played. And this hand is all the more amusing because this player opted to show. So thanks for showing this hand, and it was a fun tournament, and nice hand, nice hand. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys have any comments on how I misplayed this hand or how you would have played it, then just let me know on Cards Chat. This is Katie Dozier. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.